The music in the ballroom swelled just as the whispers started. Tasha Bell had been wiping down the last of the glass centerpieces when the security guard approached, not with a question, but with handcuffs that a guest's watch was missing. A rare, custom gold Rolex that had supposedly vanished from table 6 during dessert. Before anyone could ask who had touched the table last, Garrett Langford's voice sliced through the room. "She was working that table all night," he said, nodding toward Tasha. "I warned you people about background checks." Tasha froze. The murmur turned into a low hum of suspicion. She looked down at her uniform. Her name tag read supervisor. 12 years of spotless service, 3 promotions, and not a single warning. And none of it mattered in this moment. Garrett's tone was not loud, but it carried weight, the kind that made others step back, afraid of being on the wrong side of power. The hotel's head of security hesitated for only a second before motioning toward the exit. Tasha was walked past colleagues, clients, and guests who would never remember her name, but would never forget the image. A black woman in a maid's uniform escorted out like a thief. Her teenage son, Jalen, was waiting for her outside in the employee pickup zone. He had been excited to hear about the gala. She did not speak a word on the ride home. That night, Garrett Langford celebrated with bourbon on the rooftop terrace, laughing with board members. To him, it was a minor cleanup. Nothing personal, just discipline. But for Tasha Bell, something irreversible had snapped. She had been humiliated publicly, and she knew the watch had never touched her hands. She also knew something Garrett did not. She kept records, and she remembered everything. The official email arrived the next morning. "You are hereby placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending internal review." It felt like being erased in slow motion. In the employee group chat, no one said her name. But she saw the shift. Messages that once read, "Tasha, can you help?" were now silent. No calls, no check-ins, just a few vague texts from coworkers saying, "Hope you're okay." By Thursday, a rumor reached her sister. By Friday, her son came home quiet. "Mom," Jalen asked, standing by the fridge, "someone at school said you got arrested." She shook her head. "I was not arrested. I was lied about. And that is different." But even she could hear the weight in her own voice. Garrett Langford, meanwhile, had not just disappeared. He was coordinating. Behind closed doors, he was speaking with corporate counsel, pressuring HR to make the issue go away quietly, and floating a proposal to eliminate her position entirely under budget restructuring. It was strategic, cruel, but strategic. What Garrett did not know was that Tasha Bell was not built for quiet exits. Years ago, before life demanded her full-time care for her mother, she had been halfway through a JD at Spelman College. She had sat in on labor law briefings, written case memos, and interned with the Equal Rights Legal Defense Fund. She never lost that muscle. It just sat dormant while she raised a child and scrubbed conference room tables. That weekend, she opened a fresh binder. She began organizing the paperwork she had collected over the years. Time cards, shift logs, incident reports, names, dates, even short recordings, ones that captured things most people ignored, passive-aggressive comments, racial undertones, and Garrett's pattern of using his position to suppress complaints. And she was not working alone. Tasha contacted Detective Zoe Harmon, a veteran officer who had once investigated racial bias in hiring practices at a luxury fashion firm. Harmon reviewed Tasha's evidence and gave her a number. "Call Dr. Reuben Chase," she said. "He is one of the sharpest ethics analysts I know. If what you are saying is accurate, he'll see it clearly." Dr. Chase called back the next day. He did not lead with encouragement. He led with questions, specific ones. "How long was Garrett Langford your supervisor? Did he ever put anything in writing? Do you have a copy of the employee handbook from the year you were promoted?" Tasha answered every question without hesitation. After a long pause, Dr. Chase said, "I believe you, but I will need to see everything. If we move forward, we move precisely. One mistake, and they will bury you." "I do not plan on making mistakes," she replied. They began drafting a timeline. From the first incident of microaggression to the public accusation over the missing watch. Patterns emerged, subtle ones, like how promotions for black employees stalled under Garrett, or how complaints that came from women of color were resolved informally and then disappeared. Tasha kept her head down during the process. She did not update social media. She did not respond to gossip. Even when a neighbor suggested she just let it go, she smiled politely. Letting it go had never been the plan. Her nights were spent with documents spread across her dining table. Her son brought her tea while finishing his homework nearby. Jalen never asked again about the watch, but she could see it in his eyes, the need to believe that his mother would come out of this stronger, not smaller, and slowly, without headlines, a case began to form, a case strong enough, not just to clear her name, but to crack open the system that allowed Garrett Langford to weaponize prejudice under the cover of policy. The truth does not knock. It breaks the door when it is ready. It did not begin with an arrest or a press release. It started with a shadow in a frame, a 2-second stretch of grainy security footage that had been quietly deleted. Or so they thought. Dr. Reuben Chase had a feeling. He sent a formal inquiry through the ethics department. 3 days later, after a little legal pressure, the firm's IT department recovered the hallway footage from the day Garrett accused Tasha of stealing the missing Rolex. And there it was, 4:46 p.m. Garrett Langford, alone in the breakroom corridor. His posture was casual, but his movements were calculated. He pulled something from his coat, something shiny, and slipped it behind the vending machine just out of camera view. He glanced over his shoulder. No one else entered or exited. During that time frame, 20 minutes later, he returned with a manager. They walked into the break room. Garrett pointed at the floor. It was never about the watch. It was about erasing someone he never wanted to see rise. Dr. Chase reviewed the internal logs next. 7 complaints filed over the past 3 years, all against black women. All worded vaguely, uncooperative, overstepped, culturally misaligned. No evidence, just accusations. 4 had quietly resigned. 1 transferred. 2 were fired under performance review. Not one complaint from Garrett had ever been reviewed by an outside party. Tasha had not just been a target. She had been one in a long line. But she had come prepared. From her coat pocket, she pulled a USB drive. "I never showed this to anyone," she said. "But I recorded our conversation that day. I needed to have something in case it happened again." And then Garrett's voice filled the room. "Look, Tasha, you're smart. But this place, it's not built for people like you. You don't fit the mold, and that's not my fault." Tasha's voice responded, calm but firm. "What kind of people? You know exactly what I mean. Take the hint." Silence. Then a soft click. The end of the recording. Detective Harmon leaned forward. "Do you realize what you just did?" Tasha nodded once. "I gave the truth a voice." The boardroom was silent for a full minute. No one spoke. But the wheels had already begun to turn. 3 days later, the footage leaked. The memo, the emails, all of it landed on a journalist's desk at Channel 7. At 6 p.m., the broadcast began. "Tonight, we uncovered disturbing evidence of workplace bias and manipulation inside one of the city's largest investment firms," said anchor Jennifer Walsh. Newly surfaced footage and audio recordings suggest a senior executive orchestrated a false accusation against an employee, one of several incidents targeting black women over the past 3 years. They aired the clip. They played Garrett's voice. They read his old email aloud, the one sent to a colleague 2 years earlier. "She acts like she owns the place. Might be time to put her in her place before she gets ideas." And just like that, the damage could no longer be controlled. By 9 a.m. the next morning, Garrett Langford's company bio had vanished from the website. His badge was disabled. His office cleared out before lunch. No farewell, no explanation, just a silent exit from the building he once ruled. But it did not stop there. Employees began speaking up. Old emails were forwarded to HR. Whispers became statements. Reports that had once been buried now resurfaced, this time with witnesses ready to back them. And at the center of it all was a woman they thought they could silence. Tasha, the cleaner with law books in her bag. The intern who had walked away from courtrooms to care for her mother. The woman who had quietly gathered truth like evidence and dropped it like a hammer when the time was right. She did not smile. Not yet. But something inside her finally exhaled. The truth had arrived. Late, but right on time. Channel 5's morning anchor did not waste time. Developing now, new evidence exposes corporate executive Garrett Langford in what civil rights groups are calling one of the most blatant internal discrimination cases in recent memory. The footage, the voice recording, and a 3-year pattern of targeted complaints paint a chilling picture of systemic bias. By 9:15 a.m., the clip had been shared over 400,000 times. The hashtags followed quickly. Hashtag Justice for Tasha, hashtag Black Women Deserve Better, hashtag Langford leak screenshots of Garrett's internal emails flooded Reddit threads. TikTok creators began dissecting his language in the leaked voice memo. Instagram infographics broke down the timeline. Garrett Langford, who once curated his digital image with tailored suits and boardroom quotes, was now trending for all the wrong reasons. By noon, the firm had no choice. Effective immediately, the statement read, Mr. Langford has been placed on administrative suspension pending the outcome of an internal investigation. The internet responded faster than PR could spin. You needed footage to believe her? Suspend? Try fire. Protect Tasha. Investigate the firm. At 2:46 p.m., Alyssa Langford posted a single photo to her private social media, her hand bare where her wedding ring used to be, with the caption, Integrity starts at home. Sources close to the couple confirmed what the photo implied. Alyssa had filed for divorce that morning. Moral disgrace, she called it. A marriage built on respect cannot survive secrets like this. Meanwhile, clients began moving in silence. Investment portfolios were pulled. Scheduled meetings disappeared. One long-standing client sent a statement directly to the firm's leadership. We will not fund institutions that protect predators. Inside the building, tension turned to open panic. Executives whispered about audits. HR leads were advised to retain counsel. Staff avoided the 19th floor entirely. Langford's former domain now practically abandoned. But while Garrett's name became synonymous with public failure, Tasha quietly met with a woman named Simone Holt in a sunlit corner booth of a downtown cafe. Simone ran a nonprofit that specialized in workplace equity and corporate accountability. Her team had followed Tasha's story from the start. We have a position open, Simone said, sliding over a folder. Senior investigator. You would review internal reports, advise on ethical compliance, and help others like you. Starting salary is $85,000, with full benefits and remote flexibility. Tasha blinked. It was not just the offer. It was the way. Simone looked at her, like she belonged in the seat across from her, like she had earned it. Later that evening, as Channel 5 ran a follow-up titled, A New Face of Corporate Justice. Who is Tasha Green? Tasha stood in her kitchen in slippers, holding the offer letter, tears in her eyes. Not because she felt vindicated, but because for the first time in months, the world had finally stopped treating her like she was disposable. And Garrett, he had gone completely silent. No apology, no statement, just vanished, his reputation trailing behind him like smoke. His name removed from email directories. His LinkedIn wiped clean. What had taken him 2 decades to build collapsed in less than 4 days. The world turned its back on him. One comment stood out beneath a reposted clip of the hallway footage. This is what happens when you underestimate a woman who's already survived more than you could imagine. And just like that, the power had shifted to IT was never about revenge. It was about never feeling powerless again. 6 months later, the city looked different. Or maybe Tasha did. The leaves outside her office window were beginning to turn amber, brushing against glass that was now hers to command. Etched in gold beside the door were the words, Tasha Green, Director of Employee Justice and Compliance Equicor Alliance. Atlanta Division. She stood there a moment before entering, keys in one hand, a warm coffee in the other. No one was watching. She was not performing, but she smiled, a real one this time, and stepped into the space she had earned. The office was modest. A warm beige couch, a framed law degree she had finally finished online in her free hours, and 3 desks arranged in a sunlit corner. Each desk was occupied now. The first sat Maribel, a former hotel supervisor who had once been passed over for promotion after training 5 men for the same role. Now she wrote bias assessments and corporate reform plans. Next to her was Kenya, a soft-spoken analyst with a laugh that filled the room. Kenya had been let go from a marketing firm after reporting a VP's inappropriate comments. Now, she trained HR departments on bystander intervention and survivor protocols. The third was Bree, a single mother and data scientist who had been forced out of a finance startup after requesting maternity leave. Today, Bree ran the tech side of Equicor's audits, tracking pay equity, hiring trends, and the hidden numbers that once buried women like them. Tasha had chosen them for a reason, not because they needed saving, but because they knew what the fight felt like, because they would never look away. On her desk sat a letter, unopened, but familiar. A client request from a major tech firm asking Equicor to conduct a bias audit for their Atlanta branch. At the bottom of the page, scribbled in pen, "We would prefer to work directly with Ms. Green. We've heard she's the one who makes things right." She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Outside the window, her phone buzzed. A photo came through. Her son, Malik, standing beside a plaque that read Dean's List, spring semester. He had shaved his head again and was wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. Still her boy. Still her why. She looked up again, and there, framed beside her mother's old prayer beads on the shelf, was a photo she had taken just 2 months earlier. Her mother standing in front of a white-painted bungalow with blue shutters and a porch swing that creaked when the wind passed. Savannah. A city full of magnolia trees and memories. A house paid in full. She had done that, not from winning a lawsuit, not from going viral, but from saying no when it would have been easier to stay quiet, from recording a conversation no one believed would matter, from trusting that even if the world did not see her worth right away, it would one day have to reckon with it. The knock on the door was gentle. Kenya peeked in. "You ready for the 10 o'clock? Tasha stood, smoothing the front of her blazer. "Yeah, let's make it count." And as she walked toward the conference room, heels clicking against polished wood floors, sunlight dancing through glass walls, she did not feel small. She did not feel like the help. She did not feel like a woman pretending to fit in. She felt like the one who built the room. The auditorium lights dimmed as the last slide of the presentation faded into black. Rows of students, faculty, and community leaders sat inattentive silence as the moderator turned to the final speaker. "Tasha Green has become one of the most respected voices in corporate accountability," the moderator said. And yet, her journey began not in a boardroom, but in the break room of a luxury hotel. Applause filled the space as Tasha stepped forward. She wore no flashy colors, no borrowed power, just quiet strength wrapped in a navy blazer and clear-eyed purpose. She scanned the room, letting the stillness settle. Then she began. "I did not set out to be a symbol," she said. "I set out to be believed." Cameras clicked softly. Pens scribbled. But most of all, people listened. She spoke about systems that are built to look the other way, about the courage it takes to document the truth when no one else is watching. She spoke about her mother's sacrifices, her son's quiet resilience, and the millions of women whose names do not trend, but whose lives bear the weight of someone else's power. Then, during the Q&A, a student stood up, nervous, maybe 19. "Ms. Green, with everything that man put you through, did you ever just want revenge?" The room tensed, not out of judgment, but curiosity. The question hung in the air like a match waiting to be struck. Tasha smiled gently. Not smug, not hardened, just knowing. "No," she said, letting the words settle. And then, the best. Revenge is not making someone suffer. It is building a life so full, so grounded in truth, that their harm becomes irrelevant. I do not want him to suffer. I want him to remember me every time he sees a woman rise. The student nodded slowly, then sat down, changed, just a little. Later that night, as Tasha reviewed her emails in her hotel room, a message popped up. Subject line: "You do not know me, but you saved me." It was from a hotel worker in Nevada. "I saw your story. I recorded what my manager said. HR had ignored me for months. But this time, they listened. I won my case. I got my job back. I told my daughter what I did and that I learned it from you. Thank you." Tasha closed her laptop and exhaled, not from exhaustion, but from clarity, because in the end, it was never about one job, one building, or one man's downfall. It was about the ripple. And on that night, in a quiet hotel room far from where it all began, she realized she had not just rewritten her story, she had helped thousands start their own. The hotel lobby was polished to perfection: glass walls, gold trim, hushed conversations over cappuccinos. Tasha stepped in with a leather briefcase in one hand in confidence, wrapped around her like armor. She was there to lead a discrimination audit for one of the city's newest luxury chains. The kind of place that once would have hired her to clean, Not consult AS. She passed the front desk. A sharply dressed guest glanced at her clipboard and smiled with condescension. "Excuse me, could you let whoever's in charge know I've arrived?" Tasha paused. Then she turned, slow, calm, unwavering. "I am actually the one in charge," she said, her voice gentle but sure. "The investigation starts with me." The guest blinked, apologetic. But Tasha had already moved on to AS. She stepped into the elevator. The camera lingered on the plaque behind her. Tasha Green, from housekeeper to civil justice leader. And just like that, the story had come full circle.